It's early morning at a B-29 base in the Marianas. The big bombers are getting ready for a mission, and the men are getting ready. In the essentials, the briefing differs little from others. There's a target that will be bombed. They will proceed to this point in space above the Earth, drop their bombs, and return without ever seeing the target. These are the instructions. The men are ready for the takeoff. Hours aloft. The huge armada of superforts has spanned over 1,000 miles of trackless waters. The weather bears out the forecast. Clouds, heavy overcast, all the way to the target. At 23,000 feet, they're above it. Below and beyond lies the Japanese mainland, and somewhere beyond that, the target. If the enemy took comfort in the thought that the bombardier sees nothing more than this, they were living in a fool's paradise. For at a calculated instant, tons of high explosives, and yes, even the atomic bomb, would be sent away to the target, aimed by the miracle of radar. Before you now is the radar scope, a small circular screen giving X-ray-like vision to the mysterious 11th member of the crew, the radar operator. Until recently, we've known little of what he does, and even less about the instruments he uses. Basically, radar equipment consists of a radio transmitter and receiver. The transmitter sends a radio beam earthward. If it strikes water, the beam is not reflected. The receiver picks up nothing, and the scope appears dark, as it is now over the Pacific Ocean. But if the beam strikes a solid object, such as land, it's reflected and shows light on the scope. Watch. Something's coming in now at the upper left. Adjusting the receiver control sharpens the picture. There they are. 2 islands, both with mountains on them. That should make them easy to identify. According to the charts, only 2 islands of this shape and contour lie off the southern coast of Honshu. The little one, Kojima, the other, Hachijojima. 2 tiny dots on the face of the globe point the way for a cargo of destruction. "7 hours, 10 minutes elapsed time. Almost a full day's work for most, but to the crews, a mission less than half sweated out. The picture on the scope warns of entry to the critical zone. The return shows a large landmass, Japanese coast, over 100 miles of it. You see that bright spot at the top of the peninsula? Not exactly the picture in travel folders, but that's beautiful Fujiyama. Mount Fuji, nature's wonder, the tourist delight. Now a beacon inviting disaster, a reference point for final calculations.
Bombardier, this is radar operator, over.
This is Bombardier, go ahead.
The wind is from 268 degrees at 138 miles per hour. Ground speed on the bomb run, 394 miles per hour.
Data taken from the electronic wonder instruments is converted to precision aiming, pinpoint bombing.
17 degrees right.
Radar operator, this is Bombardier, over.
Go ahead, Bombardier.
The site's set up, we're ready to bomb.
The bomb run begins with a turn directly over Fujiyama. When the bright spot that is Fuji touches the black line, the instructions are...
Pilot, start 1/4 needle with turn, rolling out on the heading of 31 degrees.
Roger.
Bombardier, open bomb bay doors after turn.
Roger.
The moment for decision has arrived. The moment when the target must be singled out from hundreds of other invisible targets. Coastline with a large city. A peninsula jutting out in a bay. The city, Tokyo. This is the general target area. Northwest of Tokyo lies the specific target, the Kyushu aircraft factory at Kawago. A flick of the switch isolates the target image. And here it is, one tiny speck of light, the focal point for hundreds of giant bombers, for 1,000 tons of bombs.
Pilot, correct 9 degrees right.
Roger.
Ready on 70 degrees.
Ready? Mark. Mark.
At the split second before the bombs are released, the radar operator sees this.
Bombs away.
And this is what the Jap sees. His cities, his factories, in ruins. A lot of you out there are probably asking, well, why show us this? The war's over. Well, we wanted to let you in on one of the big secrets of the war. Thought you might be interested. Yes, you're right. The war is over, and we won it. And by we, I mean the foot soldiers, the men at sea, the crews who flew the missions, you men and women who worked in the factories, the scientists who gave us radar and the atomic bomb, and every last man, woman, and child who bought war bonds. That was all part of winning the war. But now there's a matter of the peace. Most of the men in uniform will be returned to civilian life. Likewise, factory workers will go back to producing civilian goods. But our scientists must go on perfecting old inventions and developing new ones for the security of our nation at peace. And you who bought bonds in support of the war effort can buy a share in the peace by investing in bonds today. How about it?
Special delivery. The delivery of that which is uncommon, exceptional in character, different from others. Special delivery. Army Air Forces style is designed for a particular function, but unlike other highly specialized functions, is not limited in range, aims, or purposes. During times of war, air power is war power, as destructive as is necessary to destroy the enemy. But AAF planes, large and small, have more than destructive power. They have constructive power greatly beneficial to the nation. Thus, in times of peace, air power is peace power. During war, instantaneous delivery was a daily function. Rear penetrations delivered at a moment's notice to assist pushing, back-breaking assaults of the ground forces sometimes meant the difference between victory and defeat. But AAF special delivery is not confined to war. Disrupted communications broken by the ravages of nature are immediately replaced, no matter how difficult the terrain. This same airplane was called upon to assist the late General Patton maintain the astounding speed of his history-making drive through Europe. Yet at the same time, in other parts of the world, the C-47 airplane was dropping food and medical supplies to men marooned in impenetrable regions. The size of the aircraft helped, not hindered, the different calls for delivery. a small aircraft could use landing areas impossible for use by larger aircraft. One of the great accomplishments of the little Cub was the ferrying of wounded from isolated outposts. Flying over jungle or water. The long-range hospital planes that gave medical attention as well as transportation to suffering men. Airline routes for peacetime were pioneered by the famed Air Transport Command's War Special Delivery. The formidable flying fortress that brought fear to the hearts of the enemy carried serum over the great ice expanse of Alaska. Helicopters, never used as combat planes, penetrated areas where even the small Cub could not enter and made on-the-spot landings to deliver everything from secret pouches to babies. The Tokyo-famed B-25 Mitchell, one of the outstanding planes of the war, is now fighting for health. Instead of bombs, the B-25 now sprays DDT over large areas in a very short space of time and on a moment's notice. Epidemics can now be prevented or stopped suddenly. These gliders help to bring the free peace we now enjoy. In the peaceful future, they again will be working for you in various ways, detaching freight gliders along a regular route, just as freight trains now drop off cars at way stations. Your Air Force is continually developing new and more astonishing aircraft. The XF-12, a new photo reconnaissance ship. The XP-84, a new fighter craft with speed and punch. The small flying wing and the giant XB-35. The C-74, one of the world's largest. The AAF dreams of today will be the aircraft of tomorrow. The B-29, one of the most favored of our Sky Armada, spread long-range death and destruction on the Japanese enemy and proved the vulnerability of their home islands to air attack. History was made at Hiroshima and Nagasaki when the B-29 dropped the first atom bombs. After the Japs were brought to their knees by this stupendous attack, the B-29 continued its history-making career by flying non-stop from Tokyo to Washington, D.C., accomplishing one of aviation's great feats. Special delivery of America's historic achievements was the destiny of the B-29. For the Army Air Forces next committed the giant B-29 Armada to science. Never before had such a mighty target been assembled beneath a bomb site. 73 ships in a 5-mile area. It was a bombardier's dream target. On Kwajalein, the ground crews prepared for crossroads, fully aware of the watchful eyes of the world. With calm precision, they checked the motors for last-minute adjustments. Each entire aircraft was given a final tune-up. Special equipment long kept under protective covers against the elements was brought out and installed. The last rehearsals are held with the drone planes, carriers of all kinds of scientific instruments for measuring the effects of the blast. The ground beep pilot takes the plane off the ground. The beep television control in the mothership takes over for the maneuvers. Finally, the drone is turned back to a ground beep control for a perfect landing. The mighty A-bomb was carefully loaded into Dave's Dream, the ship chosen to carry and drop the bomb. Constant guard was maintained and loading activities were carried on behind canvas screens. Aboard the target ships, last-minute preparations were also underway. Animals of various kinds were readied for tests to tell what effects the bomb had on living things. The sheep, first sheared, are then covered with ointment as protection against flesh burns. The effects of the bomb on these animals, while not conclusive, will furnish many clues as to the effect on human beings. Leaving their ships, many of them for the last time, crew members boarded barges bound for the observation fleet and safety. Early morning, July 1st, 1946. Able day in the Pacific, D-Day of Operation Crossroads. One of the world's largest aircraft, carrying a tiny particle of atomic energy, speeded down the runway for science. AAF special delivery of man's most terrible secret, a delivery timed to the split second. Scientists, statesmen, military men, and John Q. public all over the world had turned their eyes toward Bikini. Many precautions were taken to prevent injury to the personnel. All men of the observation fleet were warned against exposing their eyes to the flash following the burst. To give further protection against flash exposure, black-lensed Air Force gunner's glasses were provided for those whose duty necessitated watching the burst. Youth and years of scientific study combined to test the power of the atom. Young men with war-tempered nerves, steeled in battle, awaited coolly for bomb away. Learned scientists awaited tensely below to study the effects. As the metronome ticked away the eventful seconds, the world in questioning suspense waited. Unspoken was the question, what will happen? Man peeks into the power of the universe. Plutonium, one small particle burst into this staggering energy. Temperature at the explosion center is perhaps 100 million degrees Fahrenheit. The terrific pressure caused winds up to approximately 1,000 miles per hour. The radioactive vapor and debris rose to 5 miles and lasted an hour before dispersing. The inspection and salvage fleet moved cautiously toward the target area, testing for radioactivity with Geiger counters. Firefighters brought the flames under control, preparing the damaged vessels for boarding and examination. Scientific instruments were removed from the ships and given to the laboratories for careful study. X-ray and high-speed atomic particles, both deadly types of radioactivity, were discovered. Heavy damage was sustained by a large part of the target ships. The Saratoga was severely hit. The Jap cruiser Sakawa was damaged so badly that it later sank. The submarine Skate, with hull intact, was completely smashed topside, and many other ships suffered heavily from the blast. Probably no fleet will ever again be gathered so conveniently for an atomic attacker, but neither would an aggressor nation use only one bomb. Bikini will answer many questions. The answers will pave the way for more questions. The never-ending stream of questions of the future can only be answered by continuous study today. Science seeks through research and development. Your air forces in war led the world in war power. Today, in peace, it leaves the world in peace power. Air power is peace power.